And this Thursday, Latin American countries started to distribute and administer COVID-19 vaccines. Russia registers a new record of COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. In Ethiopia, at least 5 Benishangul-Gumuz local government officials were arrested after the massacre of indigenous people in that region. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The first batch of Sputnik V vaccine arrived early Thursday in Argentina. Argentina approved the emergency use of the Russian vaccine to curb the spread of COVID-19, becoming the first nation in the region to authorize the shot. President Alberto Fernandez said earlier this month that he hoped to vaccinate 300,000 Argentines before the end of the year and 10 million citizens in the first 2 months of 2021. With a population of 45 million people, Argentina ranks 11th worldwide in total cases, with over 1.5 million infections and more than 42,000 fatalities. And also on Thursday, Chile received the first shipment of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines. A flight carrying 10,000 vaccines arrived at Santiago Airport in the Chilean capital. Authorities stated that vaccinations of high-priority health workers from 4 Chilean regions are set to begin on Thursday. President Sebastián Piñera said the country has secured 30 million coronavirus vaccines from 3 suppliers. Chile is one of the hardest-hit nations in Latin America. To this date, the country registers nearly 591,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 16,200 fatalities.
Our intention is to vaccinate 5 million people from the critical group during the first quarter and then continue with the rest of the population. And our intention is to reach the majority of the 15 million people that make up the target population. Chilean citizens will receive the vaccine for free. You will decide voluntarily whether to take it or not. But we can tell you that this vaccine is safe and effective.
Costa Rica received its first batch of COVID-19 vaccines late Wednesday and plans to start vaccinations on Thursday, joining Mexico among the first Latin American countries to begin mass immunization campaigns. President Carlos Alvarado said at the news conference that it may be the beginning of the end of this pandemic. The Costa Rican leader was at Juan Santa Maria Airport in the capital, San Jose, to greet a flight delivering the first 9,750 doses of the vaccine. Last week, the country announced it had approved the vaccine, with health workers and the elderly now expected to be the first to receive the jabs. To this date, Costa Rica registers nearly 162,000 infections and over 2,000 fatalities. Like many others in this region, its health system has been placed under severe strain by the number of infections. And this Thursday, 10 brigades of Cuban health professionals comprised of 231 doctors from the Henry Reeve International Contingent arrived in Panama to assist the fight against the pandemic and to focus their attention on those infected by the disease. The arrival of the Cuban medical mission comes at a more critical time in Panama and will remain at least 3 months. The country experiences a surge in the number of infections and has overwhelmed hospitals with more than 220,000 COVID-19 cases and over 3,600 fatalities. And the Mexican government confirmed the beginning of the vaccination process against COVID-19 for this Thursday. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador made the announcement during a news brief this Wednesday. The vaccination process will first be targeted to health workers in Mexico City and surrounding regions. López pointed out that less than 1 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine arrived in the country, also saying that he requested 34 million more in the near future from the U.S. company. The head of the peace delegation of Colombia's National Liberation Army, Pablo Beltrán, gave an interview to our channel in which he spoke about his work in Havana since the peace talks broke down and reiterated his intentions to resume talks with the national government.
In Colombia, there has been a great deal of social pressure to respect and develop the peace process, and we as the ELN Dialogue Delegation have participated in this defense of the process, and we have told the government that we are willing to resume talks, and of course to respect what was agreed with the previous government.
And Pablo Beltran also said that the pressure exerted by the Colombian society and the international community creates the hope of retaking dialogues and concretizing a peace process in Colombia.
Son dos cosas distintas.
It is two different things. What makes Colombia viable is peace, not war. Therefore, this is the path that Colombia will take in the next few years, and this implies that any agreement signed be implemented and be fulfilled. That is what Colombian society demands, meaning that those agreements do not fall on deaf ears, and governments will only fulfill this with a strong pressure from society, and we are working so that pressure for the development of agreements, for the development of the process, and for the fulfillment of the agreements, and that we continue to build on what has already been built. And that is our hope.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Russia registers a new COVID-19 cases record with 29,935 infections and 6,035 related fatalities in the last 24 hours. This was reported by the National Operating Center for the Fight Against Coronavirus. Most of the new infections were detected in the Russian capital, in St. Petersburg and in Moscow province. For its part, the National Consumer Protection Office informed that Russia has performed more than 87.5 million tests of the coronavirus to this date. On Thursday, the Russian Emergency Ministry delivered humanitarian aid to the injured in Nagorno-Karabakh. Russian Emergency Ministry representative Vadim Garshin said the aid included building materials, basic commodities and electric generators. Russian peacekeepers are in Nagorno-Karabakh to monitor a ceasefire blocked by Moscow that ended more than 6 weeks of fighting between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Russia deployed nearly 2,000 peacekeepers for at least 5 years to monitor the agreement and facilitate the return of refugees. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Wednesday the nation's health regulator authorized a second COVID-19 vaccine. The Prime Minister also will extend the suspension of flights from the United Kingdom because of a new variant there, calling the situation very serious.
Bonjour à tous. Hello, everyone. This morning, we got the news that Health Canada has completed their review of the Moderna vaccine and found it to be safe and effective. Canada has an internationally recognized process of independent review, and I know that our best experts have upheld this highest standard. Now that Health Canada has approved the Moderna vaccine, we have the green light to start rolling it out across the country. The first doses of our guaranteed 40 million dose order from Moderna will arrive in the coming days. Today, I can announce that we will extend this temporary suspension of passenger flights from the UK to Canada for another 2 weeks until January 6th, so we can prevent this new variant of COVID-19 from spreading in Canada. If you've arrived from the UK recently, the Government of Canada has been in the process of reaching out with more directions.
In Moldova, the country's president-elect Maia Sandu was sworn in Thursday to assume full duties as head of state of the European nation. The ceremony took place at the presidential palace in Chisinau and was attended by high representatives of Moldovan state. During his speech, Sandu addressed the citizens in different languages, such as Russian, Gagauz, Ukrainian and Bulgarian, to cover the vast linguistic diversity of the country. In addition, the now president thanked the voters for their confidence and promised to take action to solve the serious economic and migratory crisis that the country has been going through for several years. Sandu was elected in the last elections of November 1st with 57% of the votes. On Thursday, China said the international community should resolutely say no to the discrimination against China in the global economic, trade and technological cooperation, just as they do to racial discrimination. The Foreign Minister's spokesperson made the call in response to the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's tweet, claiming that the U.S. has turned the tide on the Chinese Communist Party's 5G master plan.
We have time and again pointed out the purpose of some U.S. politicians to overgeneralize the concept of national security and abuse the state power to suppress certain foreign enterprises is to maintain the U.S. monopoly in the field of science and technology. It is a typical instance of economic bullying and running counter to market competition principles and the international trade rules and disrupting the stability of global industrial and supply chains. The so-called U.S. Clean Network is nothing but another word for coercive transactions. It runs against the will of the people and is sure to meet resistance from more and more countries. I have taken note of the fact that some European media have recently reported that the U.S. sanctions against China is a U.S. first policy and European enterprises have no intention to take sides in between the two sides. At present, China has built a total of 718,000 5G base stations to become the world's biggest 5G network. We are willing to cooperate with all other countries on the basis of mutual openness, equality and mutual benefit. At the same time, we call on the international community to resolutely say no to the country-specific discrimination in the global economy, trade and technological cooperation, just as they do to racial discrimination.
In India, farmers continue to mobilize in the streets of the country to demand that the government repeal the agricultural law that aimed to liberalize the economy of the rural sector. This Wednesday, about 100 agricultural leaders held a meeting during which they decided to continue their protest until their demands for the minimum price of sustenance to be made legal. The farmers' leaders announced their willingness to dialogue and reported having sent a response to the government about their proposals to resume the talks and requested some concrete suggestions for the government as an agenda for discussion. Meanwhile, the government maintains its decision not to give in to positions stated that the laws will not be repealed. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Ethiopia, at least 5 Benishangul Gumuz local government officials were arrested after the massacre that left at least 100 indigenous people dead in that region. Official reports reveal that among those captured is the Minister of State and Head of Labor and Social Affairs of Benishangul Gumuz, Thomas Kiwi. The officials were arrested allegedly because of their political inability to annul the presence of armed groups in the region. The Ethiopian government reported that it's working to clarify the motive for the event and to find those responsible. The African Center for Disease Control and Prevention alerts on the possible presence of a new variant of the coronavirus in Nigeria. The head of the health institution, John Nikesangot, detailed that the contagious virus presents similar features to those detected in the United Kingdom and South Africa. However, Nkanzong affirmed that it has not known the expansion of the new strain in Nigeria and neighboring countries because the variant has present produced data for its scientific study. South Africa announced an alarming rate of spread of the coronavirus, with more than 14,000 new cases confirmed in the last 24 hours, including over 400 fatalities. Health Minister Zwelini Mkhize said the latest update was the largest single-day increase in cases. Mkhize also said the country registers more than 950,000 infections. The new COVID-19 variant in South Africa is now the most predominant, as confirmed infections in the country approaches 1 million. While the variant transmits quickly and viral loads are higher, it is not yet clear whether it leads to more severe symptoms.
The cases yesterday were at a record, and so that still means more hospitalizations coming in due course, and the system is really struggling to cope with that. I think it's very concerning because there's no sign at the moment that we're reaching a peak. There's still a rapid exponential growth. We do need to think of additional restrictions so that it's clear to people the seriousness of the current situation, because already many hospitals in many parts of the country are extremely stretched.
Syria's government strongly believes that the Syrian people and army will soon achieve a definitive victory in the battle for the liberation of its territories occupied by terrorist groups and other foreign troops, a belief that drives the nation to prepare the conditions for the reconstruction and restoration of the areas to be taken back in the northwestern province of Idlib, the last extremist bastion in the country. Our correspondent Hisham Wanus has the story.
The Commerce, Industry, Agriculture and Tourism Chambers of Damascus, together with a large number of commercial actors and businessmen, launched the initiative Syria the Great Heart. The purpose of this campaign is to advance in the reconstruction of the liberated areas of Idlib and to prepare the logistic conditions for the restoration of the areas to be liberated, a joint state and private effort that, in addition to putting an end to the suffering of Idlib's inhabitants, seeks to recover the strategic agricultural, livestock and industrial potential of this province.
Idlib is one of the largest food producer areas in Syria, where there are millions of olive trees and other varieties, in addition to large poultry farms and multiple textile factories, along with other industrial and commercial facilities, which is why we launched this initiative for restoration, as it is of great importance to improve the national economy.
We are currently working to prepare the logistics, even though we know that Idlib has not been completely liberated. But this doesn't prevent us as businessmen from helping to recover and restore the province of Idlib and improve the standard of living of its brave inhabitants who are resisting terrorism and occupation, just as the other Syrian provinces did.
Meanwhile, the Syrian Arab Army and its Russian allies mobilized their troops and sent military and logistic reinforcements to Idlib in preparation for the great battle for its complete liberation, an action that takes place in response to the constant violation by al-Nusra terrorists of the ceasefire agreed last March between the presidents of Russia and Turkey, as well as the agreement of the de-escalation zones reached in May 2017 in the framework of the Astana talks, co-sponsored by Moscow, Ankara and Tehran.
All the ministries, as well as the Ministries of Agriculture, Industry and Tourism, establish work agendas to restore the liberated regions, and we are sure that very soon the entire territory of Idlib will be liberated, as well as the other territories occupied by foreign forces.
As in Idlib, the Syrian Arab Army continues its battle for the liberation of the other territories in the north and northeast of the country, currently occupied by U.S. troops, the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces and other foreign forces. The current power struggle in the Syrian city of Ain Issa, bordering Turkey and under the control of Kurdish separatist militias, is an example of this reality.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.